This is Audible.
Clarion Books and Harper Audio present Farewell to Manzanar, a true story of Japanese-American experience during and after the World War II internment, by Jean Wakatsuki Houston and James D. Houston. Read by Jennifer Ikeda. To the memory of Ko Enriku Wakatsuki and Woodrow M. Wakatsuki. Foreword. When we first considered writing a book about the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, we told a New York writer friend about the idea. He said, "It's a dead issue. These days you can hardly get people to read about a live issue. People are issued out." "I know it," my husband said. "I'm issued out myself. The issue isn't what we want to write about. Everybody knows an injustice was done. How many know what actually went on inside? If they think anything, they think concentration camps. But that conjures up Poland and Siberia, and these camps weren't like that at all." So we set out to write about the life inside one of those camps, Manzanar, where my family spent 3.5 years. We began with a tape recorder and an old 1944 yearbook put together at Manzanar High School. It documented the entire camp scene: the graduating seniors, the guard towers, the judo pavilion, the creeks I used to wade in, my family's barracks. As the photos brought that world back, I began to dredge up feelings that had lain submerged since the 40s. I began to make connections I had previously been afraid to see. It had taken me 25 years to reach the point where I could talk openly about Manzanar, and the more I talked, the clearer it became that any book we wrote would have to include a good deal more than day-to-day life inside the compound. To tell what I knew and felt about it would mean telling something about our family before the war, and the years that followed the war, and about my father's past, as well as my own way of seeing things now. Writing it has been a way of coming to terms with the impact these years have had on my entire life. To complete this book, we have had to rely on a good deal besides my own recollections. Many people helped make it possible, more than we can name here. We are especially grateful to all the members of the family who shared their memories, and to these friends, Jack and Mary Takayanagi, Don Tanzawa, and Mary Duffield. We are indebted to the numerous writers and researchers whose works have been indispensable to our own perspective on the period. And we thank the University of California at Santa Cruz for a research grant that made it possible to begin. Because this is a true story, involving an extraordinary episode in American history, we have included a list of dates and laws we hope will make it easier to follow. It needs some historical context. But this is not a political history. It is a story, or a web of stories, my own, my father's, my family's, tracing a few paths out of the multitude of paths that led up to and away from the experience of the internment. Jean Wakatsuki Houston, Santa Cruz, California, March 1973. A Chronology. 1869. The first Japanese to settle on the U.S. mainland arrive at Gold Hill, near Sacramento, California. 1870. U.S. Congress grants naturalization rights to free whites and people of African descent, omitting mention of Asian races. 1886. The Japanese government lifts its ban on emigration, allowing its citizens for the first time to make permanent moves to other countries. 1911. U.S. Bureau of Immigration and Naturalization orders that declarations of intent to file for citizenship can only be received from whites and from people of African descent, thus allowing courts to refuse naturalization to the Japanese. 1913. Alien Land Bill prevents Japanese aliens from owning land in California. 1924. Congress passes an Immigration Act stating that no alien ineligible for citizenship shall be admitted to the U.S. This stops all immigration from Japan. December 7, 1941. Surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. February 19, 1942. President Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066, giving the War Department authority to define military areas in the western states and to exclude from them anyone who might threaten the war effort. March 25, 1942. Evacuees begin to arrive at Manzanar Camp in Owens Valley, California, the first of the permanent camps to open. August 12, 1942. Evacuation completed, 110,000 people of Japanese ancestry removed from the West Coast to 10 inland camps. December 18, 1944. U.S. Supreme Court rules that loyal citizens cannot be held in detention camps against their will, the first major step toward the closing of the camps. August 14, 1945. Japan surrenders, ending World War II. November 21, 1945. Manzanar Camp officially closes. June 1952. Congress passes Public Law 414, granting Japanese aliens the right to become naturalized U.S. citizens. Terms used in this book. Issei, the first generation. The Issei were born in Japan. Most of them immigrated to the United States between 1890 and 1915. Nisei, the second generation, the children of the Issei. American citizens by birth, almost all Nisei were born before the Second World War. Sansei, the third generation of Americans with Japanese ancestry, most of them born during or after the Second World War. It is sobering to recall that though the Japanese relocation program, carried through at such incalculable cost in misery and tragedy, was justified on the ground that the Japanese were potentially disloyal, the record does not disclose a single case of Japanese disloyalty or sabotage during the whole war. Henry Steele Commager, Harper's Magazine, 1947. Life has left her footprints on my forehead, but I have become a child again this morning. The smile, seen through leaves and flowers, is back to smooth away the wrinkles as the rains wipe away footprints on the beach. Again, a cycle of birth and death begins. Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnam Poems, 1967.